Hello out there, you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for letting me your time and your ear listening into another Gamer Sauce discussion. And this time is going to be about a game that we potentially could have had, but we never actually did. And that is a Capcom produced Marvel versus DC. Now, it sounds like something that would have just made sense to do, and that it should have happened, and we just never saw it come to fruition. And it could have been a series. Heck, they could have even gotten to the point where eventually they combined it and made it Marvel versus Capcom versus DC or something like that. But we just never got around to that crossover. At all. Not in the least bit. And I think that was mostly due to DC and Capcom having some sort of beef back in the day. Now, I don't know the details on it, but I remember reading up a while ago that DC had a distinct issue with Capcom and didn't want them working on their games. Whatever that issue was, I never got to know. And I was so confused by it. I was like, hold on, what has Capcom ever done to DC? Unfortunately, I haven't looked further into it because it had other things on my mind at the time, but it's just one of those things like, we missed out on a slew of what could have been really good games. Because you got to think about all the stuff that Capcom did back in the day. We got the X-Men Mutant Apocalypse game, and then followed by that, we got Marvel Superheroes War of the Gems, and both of those were great Super Nintendo games. And so you mean to tell me that we couldn't have gotten something similar like that from fucking DC? If Capcom and DC were on good working terms with each other? And then we got the X-Men Children of the Atoms and the Marvel Superheroes fighting game. So you mean to tell me you don't think that Capcom could have done something like that with DC characters back then? That they couldn't have expanded on Batman, I was going to say Captain America. Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, any variant of him, or variant of any Green Lantern character, not any variant. You take that back. Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Flat. They couldn't have done anything with those characters. I'm pretty sure that they could have. Because they did very well with the Marvel superhero stuff, and Capcom did a decent study on those characters at the time. So, it sucks. Knowing that we didn't get those games that would have likely utilized the same systems and eventually probably would have been able to be combined in a crossover with the proper licensing agreements in place. And it just never got to happen. Now, if you've been in the gaming scene long enough and you know about fan-made stuff like Mugen, there has been an attempt at this, I think at least once or twice. But it's not the same thing as getting the authentic article from the main source of it. And I sit there and I'm just like, man, that would have been awesome. To have that type of game, you could have had so many different cross-pairing team-ups. We could have had Spider-Man and Batman together in a fighting game. Or people could have utilized Captain America and Superman together. I'm pretty sure that those are combinations people would think about and be like, damn, that would have been great. And it's just only thoughts. It's in the ether at this moment. I mean, you can't tell me that Iron Man wouldn't have teamed up with Green Arrow with the sarcastic attitudes both of them have. Or Hawkeye and Green Arrow, and like Iron Man and Hal Jordan Green Lantern. I could see those pair-ups happening. Or take it a step further, War Machine and John Stewart. Depending on which Green Lantern they used. It's just like, man, there was so many missed out opportunities. We could have seen Darkseid and Thanos working together. Man. It sucks. It really sucks. Because I'm like, damn, that would have been awesome as hell. Would have been so awesome. And it just never got to be, because there was a beef between DC and Capcom. Now, there is potential chance for a Marvel versus DC game now, but it would be developed by NetherRealm and would be totally different than what Capcom would have come up with back in the day. And not that I'm knocking the possibility of that happening with NetherRealm. It's just that those would be the totally different feels. Like really different feels. Now I could imagine a game that plays like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, just replacing all of the Capcom characters with DC characters. And how fun that would actually be. Because it's just one of those things. I'm like, man, that would be awesome. Because I could see somebody pairing up or partnering Static Shock with Black Panther and Luke Cage. I could see somebody doing that. I would do it because it would have made a lot of sense to do. Or maybe even seeing Blue Beetle join forces with Iron Man and War Machine. Or see Hawkeye paired up with Batman and Green Arrow. There's so many combinations of characters that could have been done, and it could have been a fun, knockdown, drag out, beat 'em up type of experience in a fighting game, utilizing almost everybody's favorite superheroes. Actually, I don't know if Milestone Comics was actually owned or working with DC at that time, so that might have to be run back. But still, I think most of my points stand. But if they were, like, could you imagine having Icon, Superman, and potentially somebody like the Sentry all together as a group? Gee, that's chaos there. But it would have been fun. It would have been a lot of fun. And that's why I'm just like, we missed on something that could have been so great. Because DC and Capcom had issues with each other. I'm pretty sure the information is out there somewhere. If I were to really go look it up, and I might just do that. I might just do that and add on to the end of this at some point. But it sucks just knowing that, hey, we could have had this awesome game or this awesome series of games that could have led into something bigger had there been an opportunity to do it. Because you got to imagine that if DC was working with Capcom back then and Marvel was working with Capcom back then, and they were making these games and they were releasing in, I'm not going to say in the same time period, but very close to each other, you'd have to understand that the Marvel and DC fans were going to be talking trash to each other back and forth about these games until the full thing happened. There's no two-way street about that. There's no two ways about that. Back then, Marvel and DC fans would have been hyping each other up, talking trash about this. And I know that for a fact. I mean, it would happen now if NetherRealm right this second came out and said, well, we are working with Marvel Comics and DC Comics to create the first and largest collaboration effort between the two of them. Oh, you have to know that the stands and fans are going to be hyping up their side. You got to know that would happen. It probably would have been bigger back then because it wasn't something that anybody had expected to happen. It would have probably been way bigger back then. Especially, again, if they were to do the lead-in like I was just talking about with the multiple different games. I'm just sitting here like, damn, we missed so much. So much because these two companies didn't get along with each other and didn't see the opportunity that was right in front of them. Then again, maybe they did know it was a potential chance and there was just something along the lines with them working with each other that just did not allow for it to happen. Again, I kind of have to research into the subject. I'm just remembering hearing that, and I was like so disappointed. Like, damn, that would have been nice. That would have been nice. It would have been fucking nice. It would have been fucking wonderfully amazing. It would have been great. And we don't get it. We don't get it at all. And that's sad to me. But I think I'm done with my rambling here. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen it. You guys could go ahead and tell me what you think, if you would have liked to have seen that happen yourselves. Otherwise, thank you guys very much for listening and keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody. And just like that, I have to make a correction. Because apparently there was no beef between DC and Capcom. DC had actually approached Capcom back in the day about doing a Justice League game in a similar vein to the Marvel Superheroes game. But there was a comic translator and Capcom artist at the time, Akitomo, who shot the idea down. Because the power gap between DC's characters was wider than that of Marvel. What fucking difference does it make? You're not going to tell me that there's not a wide berth of power difference between Captain America and fuck the Incredible Hulk. And they're in the fighting game together. What goddamn difference did it make? We were just talking about... Yeah, my curiosity just led me to find out that was bullshit. But then again, what I was told was from years ago. Or what I had read into was from years ago, and this was revealed just last year from the artist in question. Now I'm extremely pissed about this because we could have fucking heard it. And it took this one person to be there to just kind of naysay it, and everybody else was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Let's not do it. This is the one time that I wish that Capcom would have fucking ignored them. It probably would have been great. Oh well.